The Silent Victory. The massive holographic display in the Zephyrian Command Center showed the final moments of the battle. Red markers representing human ships flickered and disappeared one by one from the tactical screen. Admiral Keth of the Zephyrian Empire watched with satisfaction as the last human destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its debris scattering across the dark void of space. "Signal all fleet commanders," Admiral Keth announced, his voice echoing through the command center. "The human resistance has been crushed. Their outer colonies are ours." Cheers erupted from the bridge crew. Officers congratulated each other with the traditional Zephyrian gesture of striking their chests twice. The war that had lasted 3 years was finally over. The humans, those stubborn creatures from the small blue planet called Earth, had been defeated. Admiral Keth was a tall, imposing figure with 4 arms and silver skin that reflected the bridge lights. His species had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy, but the humans had proven surprisingly difficult to defeat. They fought with a determination that puzzled the Zephyrians. Even when facing impossible odds, human ships would continue fighting until they were completely destroyed. "Admiral," called out Communications Officer Vex, "we are receiving surrender signals from the remaining human settlements. The colonies on Kepler 442 bits and Proxima Centauri are requesting terms." "Excellent," Admiral Keth replied. "Send occupation forces immediately. Strip those worlds of any useful technology and relocate the survivors to labor camps. The humans may have spirit, but they lack the advanced technology to truly threaten the Empire." What the Zephyrians did not know was that in the depths of space, hidden behind an asteroid field near the edge of the solar system, something watched their victory celebration. The U.S. Phantom's Edge hung motionless in the void, its revolutionary stealth systems bending light and energy around its hull. To every sensor in the galaxy, the massive Dreadnought simply did not exist. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, her hands clasped behind her back, as she watched the enemy fleet through the main view screen. The Phantom's Edge was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a prototype vessel built in hidden shipyards beyond the reach of enemy scouts. Its technology was 20 years ahead of anything the Zephyrians had seen. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Commander James Torres, the ship's tactical officer, "the enemy fleet is beginning to disperse. They think they've won." Sarah nodded grimly. She was a veteran of the human-Zephyrian conflict, having served on destroyers and cruisers before being selected to command this experimental vessel. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her brown eyes showed the weight of command. At 38, she was young for a ship captain, but the war had promoted capable officers quickly. "Status of our cloaking systems?" she asked. "Holding steady at 98% efficiency," replied Chief Engineer Maria Santos. "The enemy hasn't detected even a whisper of our presence." The Phantom's Edge was not just invisible to sensors. Its hull was covered in metamaterials that absorbed and redirected electromagnetic radiation. Its engines used a new type of fusion drive that produced almost no thermal signature. Even its gravity generators were shielded to prevent detection by the most sensitive equipment. "Captain," called out Communications Officer David Kim, "I'm receiving scattered transmissions from human survivors on the captured worlds. The enemy is beginning mass relocations." Sarah's jaw tightened. She had grown up on New Shanghai, one of the first colonies to fall to the Zephyrians. Her family had been among the millions killed or enslaved. Every day the Phantom's Edge remained hidden, more humans suffered under alien occupation. "Sir," Torres said quietly, "we could end this. Our weapon systems are fully charged. We could take out their command ship before they know what hit them." Sarah looked around her bridge. The crew of the Phantom's Edge was small but elite. Each officer had been chosen for their skill and their absolute loyalty to humanity. They had been hiding in the shadows for months, watching the war unfold, waiting for the right moment to strike. "What's our tactical assessment of the enemy fleet?" she asked. Torres brought up a holographic display showing the Zephyrian formation. 12 heavy cruisers, 46 destroyers, and over 200 smaller vessels. They're spread across a defensive perimeter around the jump point to Earth. The command ship is at the center, surrounded by their best vessels. Estimated casualties if we engage now. Against those numbers, Torres shook his head. Even with our advanced weapons, we'd be overwhelmed within minutes. They'd destroy us, but not before we took a significant portion of their fleet with us. Sarah nodded. The Phantom's edge was powerful, but it was still just one ship. Its primary weapons were quantum torpedo launchers that could punch through any known shielding, and its defensive systems included adaptive armor that could absorb tremendous amounts of damage. But against an entire fleet, even the most advanced ship would eventually fall. "Captain," Kim interrupted, "I'm getting an encrypted transmission from Earth Command. They're asking for our status." Sarah hesitated. According to her orders, she was supposed to maintain radio silence until Earth Command gave her permission to engage. But Earth Command had been cut off from the outer colonies for weeks. They might not even know how badly the war was going. "Decode the message," she ordered. The transmission crackled with static, but the voice was clear. It was Admiral Martinez, the head of Earth's Strategic Defense Command. "Phantom's Edge, this is Admiral Martinez. If you're receiving this transmission, then our worst fears have been confirmed. The outer colonies have fallen, and the enemy is preparing for a final assault on Earth itself. You are our last hope. Use your judgment, Captain Chen. Humanity's survival may depend on the choices you make in the coming hours." The bridge fell silent. Sarah looked at each of her officers in turn. These were people who had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. They had families, dreams, and futures they had put aside to serve on this experimental vessel. "Ma'am," Santos said softly, "the crew is ready. Whatever you decide, we're with you." Sarah walked to the forward observation deck, where she could see the enemy fleet with her own eyes. The Zephyrian ships were sleek and elegant, their hulls gleaming with the reflected light of distant stars. They looked confident, victorious. They had no idea that death was watching them from the shadows. She thought about the human colonies burning under alien occupation. She thought about the millions of people depending on her to make the right choice. She thought about her crew, who had trusted her with their lives. "Lieutenant Commander Torres," she said, returning to her command chair, "begin charging all weapons systems. Helm, plot an intercept course for the enemy command ship. Communications, prepare a wideband transmission on all frequencies." "Captain," Torres said, "are we going to attack?" Sarah smiled grimly. "Not yet. First, we're going to let them know they haven't won anything. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't surrender. We fight back." The Phantom's Edge began to move through space, still cloaked and invisible. Its powerful engines pushed it toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The Zephyrians continued their celebration, unaware that their greatest nightmare was approaching silently through the darkness. Captain Chen settled into her command chair and watched the tactical display. In a few hours, the entire galaxy would learn that the war was far from over. The humans had been hiding in the shadows, but now it was time to step into the light. "All stations report ready, Captain," Torres announced. "Then let's remind the galaxy why they should never underestimate humanity," Sarah replied. "Today, we stop running. Today, we fight back." The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the course of the war. The Zephyrians thought they had achieved victory, but they were about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon had been watching them all along, waiting for the perfect moment to strike from the shadows. The unseen storm. 3 days after their supposed victory, the Zephyrian Empire prepared for the grandest celebration in their history. Admiral Keth had ordered the entire Conquest fleet to gather at Triumph Station, a massive space platform built specifically for this moment. The station was a marvel of engineering, stretching 20 kilometers across with docking bays, capable of holding the entire Imperial fleet. Representatives from dozens of alien species had arrived to witness the Zephyrian victory. The Vorthan Confederation, the Crystalline Collective, and even the mysterious Voidwalkers had sent delegations. They came to see the technology stripped from human worlds and to negotiate for their share of the conquered territories. Admiral Keth stood in the station's central amphitheater, his forearms spread wide as he addressed the assembled crowd. Behind him, captured human weapons and technology were displayed like trophies. The Admiral's voice boomed through translation devices as he spoke to the gathered aliens. "Today marks the end of human expansion," he declared. "For too long, these creatures spread across the galaxy like a plague, claiming worlds that belong to more advanced species, but the Zephyrian Empire has ended their threat forever." The crowd erupted in cheers and alien sounds of approval. Some species clicked their mandibles, others released pheromone clouds of satisfaction, and a few simply glowed brighter with excitement. Unknown to the celebrating aliens, the Phantom's Edge had been monitoring their communications for the past 72 hours. Captain Sarah Chin and her crew had used the time to study the enemy fleet's positions, identify key targets, and prepare for what would either be the most successful surprise attack in human history or their final battle. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Torres reported, "all enemy vessels are now within the effective range of our quantum torpedoes. The command ship is positioned exactly where our tactical models predicted." Sarah nodded as she studied the holographic display showing Triumph Station and the surrounding fleet. Over 300 enemy vessels were arranged in a ceremonial formation, their weapons powered down, and their crews focused on celebration rather than defense. "Chief Santos, what's the status of our cloaking systems?" "Holding at maximum efficiency, Captain. We could park on their command deck, and they still wouldn't see us." The Phantom's Edge had been designed with one primary mission in mind: to strike where the enemy least expected it. Its stealth technology was so advanced that it could remain invisible even while firing its weapons, at least for the first few shots. Communications, any word from the human survivors on the captured worlds? Officer Kim looked grim as he replied, "The news isn't good, Captain. The Zephyrians are beginning systematic elimination of anyone they consider a threat. They're targeting scientists, military personnel, and political leaders first." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Every minute they waited, more humans died. But she also knew that timing was everything. They would have only one chance to make their attack count. "Ma'am," Torres said quietly, "I've been running tactical simulations. If we can take out the command ship and the 3 heavy cruisers protecting it, their entire formation will collapse into chaos. The smaller ships won't know who to target or how to respond. And after that, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before they coordinate a response. Enough time to cripple their communications array and escape back into cloak." Sarah looked at her crew. These were people who had volunteered to crew an experimental vessel with no guarantee they would ever see Earth again. They had spent months in hiding, watching their species suffer under alien occupation. Now they had a chance to strike back. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's intercom. "In 15 minutes, we will decloak and engage the enemy fleet. Our mission is to prove to the galaxy that humanity is far from defeated. We are going to hit them hard and fast, and then we are going to disappear before they can respond. Remember your training. Trust your equipment, and let's show these aliens what happens when they underestimate human determination." The bridge crew moved with quiet efficiency. Weapon systems came online with barely a hum. The Phantom's Edge was designed to be as silent in operation as it was invisible to sensors. Its quantum torpedo launchers extended from hidden bays along the ship's hull, each weapon capable of penetrating any known shielding technology. "Helm, bring us to within 5 kilometers of the command ship," Sarah ordered. Full stealth approach. The massive Dreadnought glided through space like a ghost, passing between enemy vessels that had no idea death was moving among them. On Triumph Station, Admiral Keth continued his victory speech, displaying captured human artifacts and announcing plans for the complete colonization of human space. "Weapons ready, Captain," Torres announced. "All torpedoes loaded and targeted. Communications, prepare the wideband transmission. I want every ship in the galaxy to hear this." Sarah stood and walked to the center of the bridge. This was the moment that would define not just her career, but possibly the future of humanity itself. She thought about her destroyed homeworld, about the millions of humans suffering under alien occupation, about the crew members who had trusted her to lead them into battle. "Fire," she commanded. The Phantom's Edge unleashed hell. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space at nearly the speed of light, their exotic matter warheads capable of tearing through molecular bonds at the quantum level. The first salvo struck Admiral Keth's command ship before anyone could react. The massive Zephyrian vessel simply disappeared in a flash of white light. Its shields, its armor, its hull, everything vanished as if it had never existed. The explosion was so bright that observation screens across the fleet automatically dimmed to protect viewers from blindness. Before the shockwave from the first explosion had even reached the nearest ships, the Phantom's Edge fired again. 3 heavy cruisers protecting the command ship exploded simultaneously, their debris scattering across space in glittering clouds of metal and plasma. Panic spread through the Zephyrian fleet faster than their emergency communications could carry warnings. Ships began firing wildly in all directions, trying to hit an enemy they could not see. Some vessels collided with each other as they attempted to escape. Others simply shut down their systems entirely, hoping that whatever had attacked them would ignore ships that appeared to be disabled. "Communications array destroyed," Kim reported. "Enemy fleet coordination is completely disrupted." "Excellent," Sarah replied. "Now let's introduce ourselves." The Phantom's Edge briefly dropped its cloak, revealing its massive bulk to the terrified alien fleet. The ship was a work of art as much as engineering, its sleek hull painted in the deep blue of Earth's oceans, with silver accents that caught the light of distant stars. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Force," she broadcast on all frequencies. "To the Zephyrian Empire and all who would enslave humanity. Your victory celebration is premature. We are not defeated. We are not broken, and we will never surrender." The transmission was picked up by ships across the galaxy. On worlds where humans had been enslaved, people looked up at the sky with new hope. In Zephyrian territory, military commanders realized that their intelligence had been catastrophically wrong. "You thought you had crushed us," Sarah continued, "but you only made us stronger. You thought you had found all our ships, but you were looking in the wrong places. This is just the beginning. Humanity has allies you never imagined, and weapons you cannot comprehend. To those who would harm our people, we are coming for you." As if to emphasize her point, the Phantom's Edge fired one final salvo, destroying Triumph Station's central hub. The massive structure broke apart in slow motion, its pieces drifting away like the fragments of alien arrogance. "Captain," Torres reported, "enemy ships are beginning to coordinate their response. We should cloak and withdraw." "Not yet," Sarah replied. "Send out the activation signal." Across the battlefield, space began to shimmer. One by one, other human vessels began to decloak. They were smaller than the Phantom's Edge. Destroyers and cruisers that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind moons. But they were there, dozens of them, proving that the human fleet had never been completely destroyed. The Zephyrian forces found themselves surrounded by enemies that had appeared from nowhere. Ships that their intelligence had reported destroyed were now firing on them from all directions. The organized fleet formation collapsed into complete chaos as captains tried to decide whether to fight or flee. "All human vessels, this is Captain Chen," Sarah broadcast on the human fleet frequency. "Execute dispersal protocol. Return to your hiding places and await further orders. The galaxy now knows we are still here. Let them wonder where we will strike next." One by one, the human ships vanished back into cloak, leaving the Zephyrian fleet alone with their dead and their shattered confidence. The Phantom's Edge was the last to disappear, its image burning into the memory of every alien who witnessed the battle. "Cloak engaged," Santos reported. "We are invisible and moving to our secondary position." Sarah looked at her crew. all of whom were grinning despite the danger they had just faced. They had done something that would be remembered for generations. They had proven that humanity would never give up, never surrender, and never stop fighting for freedom. "Well done, everyone," she said. "Now let's get out of here and plan our next surprise." As the Phantom's edge disappeared into the darkness between stars, the galaxy began to realize that the war was far from over. Humanity had been driven into the shadows, but shadows could hide the most dangerous predators of all. The Zephyrian Empire had celebrated too early, and now they would pay the price for underestimating the species they thought they had defeated. The age of human resistance had begun, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen.